Dr. Amanda Hayes stared at the birthday cake's flickering candles, watching her daughter Emma make a wish. The 8-year-old's face glowed with joy, unaware that her mother's phone had been vibrating incessantly for the past 3 minutes. As Emma blew out the candles, Amanda's colleague burst through the front door, ignoring social niceties. "Dr. Hayes, you need to see this." Dr. Thompson, her usually composed research partner, was sweating, his tablet shaking in his hands. The deep space array. It picked up something. Amanda kissed Emma's forehead. "Honey, Mommy needs to work for a bit. Why don't you and Uncle Pete start cutting the cake?" She followed Thompson to her home office, the taste of upcoming disappointment familiar. After 15 years of searching for extraterrestrial signals, false alarms had become routine. But this was different. The signal pulsed with a mathematical precision that screamed artificial origin. As she began decoding the complex patterns, her hands trembled. "This isn't random noise, James. This is, oh God." The color drained from her face as the message became clear. They weren't alone in the universe, and their first contact was a warning. Within hours, her living room transformed into an impromptu command center. Admiral James Cooper, a battle-hardened veteran with more salt than pepper in his hair, stood examining the 3D projection of the asteroid cluster's trajectory. "You're certain about this, Dr. Hayes?" Amanda nodded, her daughter now sleeping upstairs. "The patterns in the asteroid trajectories are too precise. Someone or something redirected them. This isn't a natural phenomenon." She pulled up another hologram, showing impact calculations. "We have 15 years before they hit. Even if we deflect some, the sheer number will trigger an extinction-level event." Cooper finished, his jaw tight. "The question is, why? Why would an advanced civilization choose this method to destroy us?" "Sir," Thompson interjected, "look at the timing intervals of the signal. It's not just a warning about the asteroids. There's more data embedded deeper in the transmission." Amanda's fingers flew across her holographic keyboard, peeling back layers of the alien message. Her eyes widened. "It's not just a warning, it's a test." She projected a new set of data streams. These civilizations, they'd done this before. They redirect extinction-level threats toward developing worlds. Those who survive, who find ways to escape or defend themselves. Prove themselves worthy of joining the galactic community, Cooper said, realization dawning. So we're being hazed by the universe's most exclusive club. 15 years, Amanda whispered, looking at Emma's birthday photo on her desk. "That's all we have to either stop them or leave." Cooper straightened his uniform. "Then we better get started. Dr. Hayes, I'm about to propose something that will either save humanity or go down as the most expensive failure in human history." He pulled up a classified file on his secure tablet. "Have you ever heard of Project Exodus?" Amanda's eyes scanned the preliminary plans, her scientific mind already calculating possibilities. "Sir, this is, ambitious doesn't begin to cover it. Converting asteroids into generation ships. The engineering challenges alone are impossible by today's standards," Cooper agreed. "But we have 15 years and the greatest minds on Earth. More importantly, we have something these aliens might not expect." "What's that?" Cooper smiled grimly. "We're human, and humanity has a long history of doing the impossible when our backs are against the wall." As if to punctuate his point, Emma's voice carried down from upstairs. "Mom, can we finish the party?" Amanda looked at the asteroid projections, then at her daughter's photo. "Admiral, I'm in, but we do this right. We're not just running away. We're taking who we are with us." "Agreed," Cooper nodded. "Let's make our first step into the cosmos one that these aliens will never forget." The next morning, Project Exodus began in a bunker beneath Denver, while somewhere in the vastness of space, unseen watchers waited to see if humanity would survive their test. Lieutenant Colonel Mike, the Maverick Rodriguez, stood in the lunar observation deck, watching mining charges detonate across asteroid 2037X in perfectly synchronized sequences. His unorthodox approach had earned him plenty of critics, but as the explosions carved precise, geometric patterns into the massive rock, even the skeptics fell silent. "Told you the mining patterns would work," he said, grinning at Chief Engineer Emily Blackwood, who stood arms crossed beside him. "Sometimes you need to think like a sculptor, not just an engineer." Emily's response was interrupted by a proximity alarm. Through the reinforced windows, they watched as a shimmer in space revealed an alien observation vessel, dropping its stealth field for the first time since Project Exodus began. "Well," Mike quipped, "looks like we got the attention of our cosmic neighbors." "Focus, Maverick," Emily snapped, though he caught the hint of a smile. "The internal cavity calculations have to be perfect, or we'll lose structural integrity once we start hollowing it out." The next stage of charges detonated, and Mike's tablet lit up with sensor data. His hands, calloused from years of marine service before engineering school, danced across the holographic display. "Look at these readings. The rock composition is even better than we hoped. Natural radiation shielding, and the mineral deposits are perfect for our hydroponics systems." Emily leaned in, her professional rivalry momentarily forgotten as she studied the data. "These readings, they're unprecedented. The asteroid's core could house twice the population we initially calculated." "Which means we can save more people," Mike said softly, his usual bravado fading as he remembered why they were here. His sister hadn't made the selection cut for evacuation. Every extra spot meant another family stayed together. The alien vessel moved closer, its advanced sensors clearly scanning their work. Mike had learned to ignore them, but Emily still tensed whenever they appeared. "You know what bugs me?" she said, checking the next sequence of charges. "They're just watching. All that advanced technology, and they're just observing." "Maybe that's the real test," Mike replied, making a minute adjustment to the detonation pattern. "Not just if we can survive, but how we do it. Our way, not theirs." The next explosion sequence began, but something was wrong. The patterns weren't matching the simulations. Warning alerts flashed across their screens. "The cavity's collapsing." Emily shouted, fingers flying across her control panel. "The structural supports won't hold." Mike's mind raced. Years of combat experience had taught him that sometimes the best solutions came from instinct rather than calculations. "The resonance," he muttered, then louder. "Emily, synchronize the remaining charges with the asteroid's natural frequency." "That's insane. It could tear the whole thing apart." "Trust me. Like tuning a guitar string. We work with the vibrations, not against them." Emily hesitated for a split second, then executed the command. The charges detonated in a new pattern, creating a harmonious wave that stabilized the collapsing sections. When the dust settled, the internal scans showed something remarkable. The collapse created natural archways, Emily whispered, amazed. They're perfect for supporting the habitation rings." Mike smiled, watching the alien ship drift closer, its sensors intensively scanning their accidental innovation. Sometimes the best engineering comes from embracing chaos rather than fighting it. Admiral Cooper's voice came through their comms. "Rodriguez, Blackwood. Good work. But we've got 5 more rocks to hollow out, and time's ticking. Sir, Mike replied, already planning the next sequence, I think we just proved something important. We're not just building ships. We're creating new ways to build them. As they prepared for the next asteroid, Emily pulled up the structural calculations. I'm still not saying you're right about everything, Maverick. Course not, he grinned, watching the alien ship continue its observation. But admit it, we make a pretty good team when we're proving the impossible possible. Above them, the next asteroid moved into position, waiting to be transformed from space rock into humanity's ark. And somewhere in that vessel watching them, alien observers began to realize that perhaps they had underestimated humanity's capacity for innovation. Security Director Kate Sullivan stared at the holographic wall of faces before her, each one representing a human life. The Noah Protocol's algorithm hummed quietly, rearranging the portraits based on countless variables. Her office, nestled in the heart of the Denver bunker, had become a temple of impossible choices. Director Sullivan, her assistant knocked softly. Your brother's family is here for their evaluation. Kate's throat tightened. Send them in, sir. Tom Sullivan entered with his wife and 2 children. The kids, both under 10, wore their best clothes, as if dressing up could somehow influence their chances of making it onto the ships. Kate's niece, Amy, clutched a worn sketchbook to her chest. Hey, big sister, Tom said, trying to smile. Guess it's our turn to roll the cosmic dice. The Noah Protocol's display updated, and Kate's heart sank. Her brother's family ranked in the lower percentiles. Engineers were abundant in the database, and Tom's specific skill set wasn't unique enough to warrant priority placement. But then Amy opened her sketchbook. I drew the ships, she said proudly, showing page after page of detailed spacecraft designs. Not just copies of existing plans, these were innovations, drawn with the uninhibited creativity only a child could possess. Kate picked up one drawing, her trained eye catching something unusual. Emmy, why did you design the hydroponics section this way? Oh, because if you spiral it like a seashell, you can fit more plants and still leave room for people to walk around. And look, the water can flow down like a river, feeding all the levels. Kate quickly scanned the design into the system. Within seconds, warnings flashed across her screen, but not the kind she expected. The computer was flagging the design for immediate engineering review. A 9-year-old had accidentally designed a more efficient hydroponic system than their current plans. Tom, Kate said slowly, how long has Amy been drawing these? Since the project was announced, she's filled 12 notebooks. We tried to get them to the engineering team, but with all the submissions. Kate was already sending priority messages to Rodriguez and Blackwood. Your daughter just redesigned our entire agricultural system. Through the eyes of a child, she looked at the protocol rankings again, this time with new understanding. She opened a secure channel to Admiral Cooper. Sir, I need to propose a modification to the Noah protocol. Sullivan, we've been through this. The algorithm is missing something crucial, she interrupted. We're choosing based on traditional metrics, but look at this. She transmitted Emmy's designs. A child just improved our hydroponics efficiency by 30% because she saw it differently. We're not just preserving skills, we're preserving perspective. There was a long pause. What are you suggesting? We modify the protocol. For every specialist, we include a dreamer. For every engineer, an artist. For every scientist, a storyteller. Humanity's strength isn't in our individual skills, it's in how we combine them. The alien observation vessel, ever present, moved closer to the bunker's observation windows. Kate wondered if they could somehow sense the pivotal moment unfolding. The other ships, Cooper said thoughtfully. The other species. They all failed because they tried to preserve only their best. No, sir, Kate replied, watching Amy sketch another design. They failed because they forgot that best isn't just about efficiency. It's about who we are. All of us. The next day, Kate presented the revised Noah Protocol to the Global Council. The aliens watched as humanity made what they probably considered a catastrophic mistake, choosing to bring their dreamers along with their doers. As the new selections began, Kate received a message from Rodriguez. Emmy's design works. We're implementing it across all 5 ships. Think we just proved your point about perspective. Kate looked at her own family's rankings, still too low to make the cut. But as she authorized another group of artists, poets, and dreamers to join humanity's great journey, she smiled. They weren't just saving bodies, they were saving humanity's soul. And somewhere above, the alien observers added another note to their report. They choose to carry their inefficiencies with them. Perhaps that is why they will succeed. Flight Commander David Zero Thompson stood in Launch Control's central hub, surrounded by holographic displays showing all 5 ships. His hands moved through the air, conducting an orchestra of machines like a maestro. 15 years of preparation had led to this moment. Earthseed, report status, he called out, his voice steady despite the pressure. Reactor nominal. Hull integrity at 98.9%. Life support optimal, came the response from the first ship, its massive form gleaming in lunar orbit. One by one, each vessel reported ready: Starweaver, Phoenix Rising, Nova Dawn, and finally, Humanity's Hope. 5 hollowed-out asteroids transformed into Orcs, each carrying 50,000 souls. Sir, his second-in-command whispered, the gravitational sensors are picking up anomalies. The alien vessels are moving into observation positions. David nodded, remembering the countless nights he'd spent playing Stellar Conquest in his youth. The game's complex orbital mechanics had seemed like entertainment then. Now those skills were about to save humanity. All ships, prepare for Thompson's waltz, he commanded. The name had started as a joke during simulations, but it had stuck. Remember your training. This is just like The Sims, only with better graphics. Nervous laughter rippled through the command center. Even now, with humanity's future hanging by a thread, they could still find humor. The first gravitational wave hit, stronger than predicted. Earthseed's stabilizer struggled, its massive form shuddering visible. Wave pattern doesn't match projections, an analyst called out. The alien vessels, they're generating interference. David's mind raced. Were they sabotaging the launch? No, this was another test. They wanted to see how humanity handled chaos. All ships, shift to Pathan Delta, he ordered, his fingers dancing through the holographic controls. Like that old game of Snake, follow my lead, but offset your timing. We'll use their interference as a counterweight. The massive vessels began to move, their engines igniting in sequence. Instead of fighting the gravitational waves, they'd rode them, each ship's motion complementing the others. The alien interference, meant to disrupt, became part of their dance. Sir, Starweaver's losing alignment. David watched as the second ship began to drift. Without thinking, he grabbed his old gaming controller from his desk. He kept it as a good luck charm. Plugging it in, he took manual control of Starweaver's thrusters. What are you doing? Admiral Cooper demanded from the observation deck. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways, David replied, his thumbs moving with muscle memory earned from thousands of hours of gaming. Jenny, remember when we used to play co-op? Take Novadon's controls, just like old times. His sister, manning Novadon's navigation, caught on immediately. Together, they coordinated their ship's movements like they once coordinated space fighters in virtual battles. The alien vessels moved closer, their sensors clearly focused on the unconventional display of piloting. The gravitational waves intensified, but now each ship rode them perfectly, their formation transforming the interference into forward momentum. Nuclear pulse propulsion systems engaging in 3, 2, 1. The engines fired in perfect sequence, creating a rippling effect that lit up cislunar space. The sight was breathtaking. 5 massive vessels performing an intricate ballet against the backdrop of stars, their synchronized drives painting an artificial aurora across the sky. All ships reporting nominal trajectory, Jenny called out, her voice thick with emotion. We did it, David." The command center erupted in cheers, but David kept his focus on the holographic displays. The hard part was just beginning. As humanity's Orcs broke free from Earth's gravity well, he thought he saw something unexpected on one of the alien vessels, what looked like an approximation of applause. "Well played, Commander," Admiral Cooper said, placing a hand on David's shoulder. "Though I suspect this isn't quite what your mother meant when she said all those video games would pay off someday." David smiled, watching the ships accelerate toward deep space. "Maybe not, sir, but humanity just leveled up." As Earth fell away behind them, the alien observers updated their records. Note, species demonstrates unprecedented coordination abilities. Advisory: their apparent recreational activities may serve as advanced training simulations. Recommend continued observation. 50 years into their journey, Captain Jessica Martinez stood in Earthseed's hydroponics cathedral, watching Amy Sullivan's spiral garden design continue to flourish. The young artist, now approaching 60, had become the ship's lead botanical architect. But right now, neither woman was focused on the plants. "Show me the storm data again," Jessica commanded, her voice echoing through the vast chamber. The holographic display materialized, showing thousands of micro-meteoroids approaching their fleet. Each tiny dot represented a potential hull breach, and together they formed a cloud of destruction nearly impossible to navigate around. "Ship's orchestra is ready, Captain," Thomas Wright announced through the comm. The conductor had been skeptical when Jessica first proposed her crazy idea, but now he stood ready with his ensemble in the main performance hall. "Remind me again how music is going to save us from space rocks." First Officer Chen asked, his skepticism evident. Jessica smiled, remembering her grandfather's stories about Mexican soccer teams using synchronized movements to control the flow of the game. "Everything has a rhythm, Miguel. Even chaos." She activated the fleet-wide comm. "All ships, prepare for resonance defense pattern. Thomas, begin the 5th. The opening notes of Beethoven's 5th Symphony echoed through all 5 vessels. But this wasn't just for morale. Each ship's shield harmonics had been tuned to resonate with specific musical frequencies. As the orchestra played, the ship's defensive systems pulsed in harmony. First wave approaching, Emmy reported, her artist's eye tracking the patterns. "Look at how they move. It's like a murmuration of starlings." Jessica's eyes widened. "That's it. Thomas, modify the tempo. Match their flow. Chen, get me Thompson on the line." David Thompson's aged face appeared on the screen. "Let me guess. You're about to suggest something crazy. Remember the old videos of starling flocks? How they moved as one? We need to do that, but with our ships. The music isn't just for the shields, it's for us. A shared rhythm we can all feel and move to. The first impacts began, but the synchronized shields, pulsing with Beethoven's rhythm, dispersed the smaller rocks. Still, larger ones were getting through. All ships, assume Narration formation. Jessica commanded, follow Earthseid's lead. Feel the music, follow the flow, like a dance. The 5 massive vessels began to move in concert, their movements guided by the symphony. Where conventional evasive patterns would have failed, this organic, flowing motion allowed them to ride the storm's currents. Rocks that would have hit one ship were deflected into the synchronized shields of another, their energy absorbed and dispersed by the musical resonance. In the observation vessels that had followed humanity's fleet for 50 years, the alien observers watched in bewilderment. Their sensors recorded everything, trying to understand how this species had turned art into a survival mechanism. Port shield failing. Chen called out as a larger meteoroid breached their defenses. Transfer power to the starboard shield, Jessica ordered. Let it through on purpose. Amy, time to test your theory about controlled damage. The rock pierced Earthseid's outer hull, but instead of catastrophic damage, it followed the spiral pathways Amy had incorporated into the ship's design. Like water in a curved channel, the debris energy dissipated harmlessly through the void spaces between decks. Damage minimal, Chen reported, amazed. The ship, it's using the impact energy to strengthen its structural integrity. The whole fleet is adapting. As the last of the storm passed, Jessica looked out at the fleet, still moving in their graceful dance pattern. The ships were scraped and dented, but intact. More importantly, they discovered something new about their vessels. They weren't just survival machines, they were evolving with their inhabitants. Log update, she recorded later. 50 years into our journey, humanity continues to survive not through superior technology or strength, but through our unique ability to find rhythm in chaos, to turn our artistic expression into scientific innovation, and to dance with the universe rather than fight it. In their observation vessels, the aliens added a new note. Caution. Human vessels display unprecedented adaptive capabilities. Their integration of art and science suggests consciousness development beyond expected parameters. These are no longer just ships. They are becoming something else entirely. Fleet historian Lucas Bradley couldn't help himself. He laughed. The Orcs diplomatic delegation, with their elaborate tentacles and crystalline environmental suits, had just performed their most sacred greeting ritual. It reminded him exactly of his high school's disastrous production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, where the fairy queen had gotten tangled in her own wire-suspended costume. Lucas, Captain Martinez hissed, but it was too late. The Orcs' translator crystals flickered with confusion. Their species had encountered many reactions to first contact: fear, awe, aggression, but never laughter. The lead diplomat, whom Lucas mentally nicknamed Titania due to her elaborate head crystals, tilted her head in a gesture that somehow conveyed both offense and curiosity. You find our sacred greeting amusing, human historian. The translator rendered her harmonic tones into English. Lucas composed himself, years of studying human cultural interactions kicking in. Not amusing, Your Excellence. Familiar. You've just reminded me of one of humanity's greatest storytellers, and his work about the magic of misunderstanding. The Orcs' biolights pulsed with interest. Explain. Pulling up a holographic display, Lucas showed scenes from Shakespeare's play, preserved in the fleet's cultural database. See, we've been exploring the comedy and tragedy of first meetings for centuries. Through art, We prepare ourselves for moments exactly like this. To everyone's surprise, Titania's crystalline form shimmered with what their xenobiologists would later identify as their species' version of laughter. Your kind rehearses first contact through performance. We rehearse everything through art, Lucas explained, warming to his subject. Each ship in our fleet has developed its own unique culture during our journey. Would you like to see? The next hours became an impromptu cultural exchange. The Orcs were shown Nova Dawn's zero-gravity ballet performances, where dancers used the ship's artificial gravity fluctuations as part of their art. They witnessed Starweaver's adaptive architecture, where corridors and chambers reconfigured themselves based on crew movement patterns, creating living sculptures. But how do you maintain technological progress with such inefficient use of resources? Titania asked, genuinely puzzled. Lucas guided them to Earthseed's engineering bay, where Amy Sullivan's latest designs were being implemented. See that engineer there? She started as an artist. Those maintenance robots, designed by a poet who saw them as characters in a story. That new power distribution system, inspired by a musician who noticed patterns in power fluctuations that matched ancient rhythm structures. The Orcs delegation's biolights pulsed rapidly as they processed this information. Their own species had achieved technological supremacy through rigid specialization. Yet these humans, they crossed boundaries as easily as breathing. We came to offer you advanced FTL technology, Titania announced. But first, you must prove yourselves worthy through our traditional trials. Lucas couldn't help himself. He laughed again. I'm sorry, but that's also familiar. There's this old human story about a sphinx and riddles. You treat everything as a story, another Orcser asked, somewhere between fascinated and horrified. Stories are how we make sense of the universe, Lucas replied. They're how we turn the impossible into the possible, those trials you mentioned. To us, they're just another chapter. Captain Martinez, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke up. We accept your trials, but we have a condition of our own. The Orcser's crystals flickered with surprise. No species had ever dared to set conditions. We want to document everything, Martinez continued. Every trial, every success or failure. Not just the technical data, but the stories of how we face them. Future generations should know not just what we did, but who we were when we did it. Titania was silent for a long moment. Finally, her translator crystals hummed. In all our observations of your journey, we thought we were watching a species learning to survive in space. Now we realize you are teaching space to accommodate you. Lucas smiled, already composing the historical account in his mind. That's humanity for you. We don't just explore the universe. We help it imagine new possibilities. In their observation logs, the Orcser made a note. Warning: human integration of art and technology represents an unprecedented evolutionary path. Their stories may be their most powerful technology of all. Dr. Rachel Turner stood before the first Orcser trial chamber, her collection of antique puzzle boxes clutched in her hands. Beside her, Dr. Marcus Webb adjusted his ancient wire-rimmed glasses, a family heirloom he'd insisted on bringing from Earth. You realize we're about to face the most advanced testing system in the known galaxy, Marcus said, and you brought toys. Rachel smiled, running her fingers over the intricate wooden patterns. Everything's a puzzle, Marcus. The only difference is scale. The chamber doors opened, revealing a vast space filled with shifting holographic patterns. Titania's voice echoed through the room. The first trial tests cognitive processing. Most species take 3 standard cycles to solve it. You may begin. The walls erupted with complex mathematical equations, quantum formulas, and multidimensional physics problems. Marcus immediately began calculating, but Rachel stepped back, watching the patterns flow. "It's moving like my grandmother's music box," she whispered. Marcus, stop thinking like a physicist. What if these aren't equations? What if they're dance steps? He looked at her like she'd lost her mind, but after 50 years in space, humanity had learned to embrace the impossible. "Explain." Rachel pulled out her puzzle box, demonstrating how its pieces moved. "See how the patterns repeat? It's not about solving each equation individually. They're meant to work together, like a symphony." Marcus's eyes widened. He pulled up the ship's cultural database, searching for something specific. Like that zero-gravity ballet from Nova Dawn. The dancers didn't fight weightlessness. They used it to create new forms of movement. Working together, they began to approach the trial differently. Instead of trying to solve each problem separately, they looked for the rhythm connecting them. Rachel treated quantum equations like her escape room puzzles, finding hidden patterns in seemingly chaotic data. Marcus translated mathematical principles into musical notes, revealing harmonies in the chaos. "The frequency patterns," Marcus exclaimed. "They match the resonance we used during the meteor storm. Captain Martinez was right. Everything has a rhythm." In the observation chamber, the Orcs watched in bewilderment as the humans turned their most challenging cognitive test into what appeared to be an elaborate game. Rachel had the ship's children visit, asking them what patterns they saw. Their uninhibited minds found connections the adults had missed. "That looks like the way water moves in the hydroponics bay," one child said, pointing to a particularly complex equation. "Our simple observation helped solve a quantum mechanics problem that had stumped the Orcs for centuries." As the trials progressed, humanity's approach became clear. They weren't trying to prove they were smarter or more advanced. Instead, they were demonstrating something the Orcs had never considered: the power of combinatory thinking. Final trial approaching, Titania announced. No species has ever completed all 7 tests in less than 15 cycles. Rachel looked at the puzzle in front of them, a seemingly impossible problem involving dimensional mechanics. Instead of attacking it directly, she called in Amy Sullivan, now their eldest artist engineer. "See these energy flows," Amy said, studying the patterns. "They're just like the currents we use to distribute power through the ships. If we treat space-time like water in a garden." Together, they reimagined the problem. Rachel's puzzle-solving skills, Marcus's physics knowledge, and Amy's artistic perspective combined to create a solution that didn't just solve the problem. It suggested entirely new possibilities for space travel. The chamber erupted in light as the final trial concluded. Titania's biolights pulsed with what they'd learned to recognize as astonishment. 3 cycles, she announced. "You completed all trials in 3 cycles. But more importantly, you've solved them in ways we never imagined possible." Rachel gathered her puzzle boxes, smiling. "That's because you designed these tests to measure advancement. But humanity's strength isn't in how far we've come. It's in how many different paths we can take to get there." The Orcs made their final observation note. "Traditional metrics of species advancement may need revision. Human capability to combine disparate elements, art, science, play, intuition, suggests evolution has taken an unprecedented branch. They don't overcome obstacles. They reinvent them." Lieutenant Sarah Foster stood at the helm of Earth's fastest ship, the Reunion, staring at the FTL interface the Orcs had provided. But instead of activating it, she was listening to her grandfather's voice, transmitted across 50 years of space. "We did it," Sweetheart. Benjamin Old Ben Foster's weathered voice crackled through the quantum comm. Earth survived. Those asteroid-hollowing techniques you sent back? We adapted them to build planetary shields. Humanity didn't just survive in space. We learned to protect our home. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she looked at the modified FTL designs on her screen. The entire fleet had worked together to improve the Orcs technology, combining it with the lessons learned from their long journey. The Foster Hayes drive, she whispered, touching the console. Dr. Amanda Hayes' granddaughter had helped design it, continuing a legacy that began in a living room with a birthday cake and a warning from the stars. Captain Martinez's voice came over the fleet channel. All ships, prepare for the first human FTL jump. Sarah, your grandfather helped launch us into the dark. It's fitting that you'll help bring us into the light. The Orcs observation vessels moved closer, their sensors focused on the modified drive systems. They had expected the humans to simply accept their superior technology. Instead, humanity had done what it always did. They made it their own. Drive spooling up, Sarah announced. The modifications are holding. Amy's organic flow patterns are actually improving efficiency by 27%. Lucas Bradley, now the fleet's chief historian, added his own transmission. 50 years ago, we left Earth thinking we were running from death. Instead, we found new ways to live. And now, he paused, emotion catching in his voice. Now we're about to prove that humanity's greatest journeys never really end. They just change course. The first hints of Proxima Centauri became visible as the fleet approached their final conventional space maneuver. But it wasn't just their destination anymore. It was proof that humanity could face any challenge and transform it into opportunity. All ships, execute final alignment, Sarah commanded. Grandmother used to say that every end is just a new beginning. Today, we prove her right. The Foster Hayes drive hummed to life across all 5 vessels. Unlike the harsh, mechanical feel of the original Orcs design, this version sang with the harmony they discovered during the meteor storm. The ships themselves seemed to resonate with the energy, their 50 years of evolution culminating in this moment. Jump coordinates locked. Sarah continued. Emergency protocol standing by. But she smiled. Somehow, I don't think we'll need them. In their observation vessels, the Orcs recorded their final notes. Human modification of FTL technology demonstrates unprecedented integration of art, science, and cultural evolution. The question is no longer whether they are ready for the galaxy. The question is whether the galaxy is ready for them. All ships reporting ready came the call from each vessel, one by one. Earthseed, Starweaver, Phoenix Rising, Nova Dawn, and Humanity's Hope, each name a promise kept. Grandpa, Sarah transmitted back to Earth, we're coming home, but we're bringing the stars with us. The Foster Hayes drive engaged. Space-time bent not like a brutal fold, but like a dancer's graceful movement. The ships didn't fight their way through the fabric of space. They danced with it, using principles learned from 50 years of turning survival into art. As the fleet made its historic jump, Sarah thought she heard music. The same symphony they'd used to survive the meteor storm, now playing through the very structure of space-time itself. Humanity had not just reached the stars. They had taught the universe a new way to sing. The last transmission before the jump came from Old Ben. We'll leave the light on for you, sweetheart. Earth's watching the skies, and this time we're seeing more than just stars. We're seeing proof that humanity's greatest strength isn't in our technology or our numbers, but in our ability to turn every ending into a new beginning. And with that, humanity made its first FTL jump, not as conquerors or refugees, but as artists painting their dreams across the canvas of space itself.